Who am I telling my story to? And this is where most of my clients come in struggling a little bit. This is my 15th year doing my role as a creative director, and so in those times, worked with a lot of different clients from large corporate brands all the way down to small businesses and startups. I actually teach a class on entrepreneurship as well. And from all the way from the class all the way up to some of the bigger brands, which sometimes they have it down a little bit further, they all struggle with who my customer, who is my audience. And really, I would argue that that is probably the single most important question that you could ask in a business. Who is my customer? Because everything kind of hinges on that once you figured out what your message is. You got to get it to the right people. So, are you really listening as you're talking with people? But a few months ago, I went to see my doctor. So we sat down with him in the patient room and started telling him, here's what I was experiencing. And I probably got like halfway through, and he was like, no, it's this. And I was like, okay, but here's another thing I'm experiencing. I don't know if that quite lines up with what you just said. I mean, could you help me understand that? He's like, no, this is what it is. Here's some medicine you can go take. Well, don't tell him, but that medicine is still sitting on my desk. And I'm better. So I think you see the point, that it's not always about talking. It actually starts with listening. I think we know that. Honestly, as a husband, and I have a little girl, so I'll probably be listening quite a bit. But as a husband, I realize that they don't, my wife, for example, she doesn't always want me to fix things. She just wants me to listen. And at the end of the day, she'll feel better about that, and that'll solve the problem that she was experiencing sometimes. And sometimes there are solutions that we have to come up with together. But the point is that it's not always just communicating info. It's listening. And then by listening, I learn certain things that actually influence what I say. So while you have your story, by listening, you can tailor your story to the needs of that person or that audience. So, how do we do that? Well, here's a little inspirational quote that I found, and I had not actually heard of Mr. Rusk, but he said the best way to persuade others is with your ears, by listening to them. And I thought that was actually a very good, helpful point to keep us thinking on. So, how do we do it? Well, you can take two different approaches. And I will tell you, at least with me, what works. Maybe with you, you're the same. But to be trusted goes along with typically someone that comes alongside as a friend. They feel, after listening, to you, communicate with them, the challenges, and if they listen and they really just kind of take it in, ask questions, inquire, really act like they're trying to help you. You walk away feeling good about that experience, but you kind of feel like there's a relationship. There's kind of like a little friendship. Maybe it's small, maybe it's just getting started, but you feel like they're more of a friend, right? I think we've all had experiences like that. You might have had an experience like I had recently. I had a guy who, I knew his family, and their son went to work in a large company, and so he wrote me an email, and he said, well, I'm working in this company, here's my products and services, can I get on a phone call with you? And I'm kind of like, well, let me read through your email and kind of consider it. And, then he sends me a message through LinkedIn, like, okay. And so I read him back, and I'm just like, well, thank you, but I really got a vendor in that area. I'm good. I'm good. I'll call you if I need you, that type of thing. So he writes me another email a week later, same thing. And I'm like, okay. And then he sends me a FedEx package in the mail of all his company stuff. Well, he's the sales guy, and he didn't make it in my book because he didn't listen, and he wasn't a friend. He didn't assess my needs. And so, honestly, when we come across as trying to appeal to our audience, it's not just what we say, it's what we do that matters, right? My advice would be let your potential customers explain their problems to you. Almost like, sitting down with a counselor. Ask them questions so that you really understand their needs. How many of us have, sat in a conversation and you hear a few lines, you're like, oh, I know what you need. And then we kind of put our foot in our mouth because that really wasn't what they needed. Well, offer solutions after hearing them out that then show that you care and want to solve their problems. That's what it's all about, right? The counselor type approach is really going to be helpful to you. We're almost done with point 2. We're going to jump into some of the tools, but how do you do this? Well, knowing your audience is actually quite simple, honestly. These are questions you can ask as you're thinking about your audience. What problems would my customers like solved that I have the capacity to solve? If you can't solve them, you might not find that they're the right audience. You got to find the right fit for what you're offering and your capabilities. So what problems would my customers like solved? What do I have that my customers really need or want is question number 2. And that goes back to your only statements as well. This is where those things tie together. And lastly, number 3, what feelings do my customers want to walk away with that I can contribute toward? So question number 1, what problems will my customer like solved? So I have a customer here actually in Spartanburg, Milliken. And Milliken Company, one of their divisions is the chemical division. And they were trying to listen to their customers and solve problems. They're a pretty innovative company. Maybe you've heard of them. And so they heard a problem in the market that moms were struggling. I observed some of these frustrations when children are using markers and they don't always color within the lines on the table, on the paper. They color on themselves and their clothes. And so Milliken was trying to solve a problem for moms. And that problem was creating washable colorants so that moms could simply throw that garment, whatever it is, shirt, shorts, etc., into the washing machine and it would come out looking the way it started and not with marker writing all over it. Milliken tried to solve problems, and they solved a problem for moms. Question number 2, what do I have that my customers really want? Well, I don't know if you know this, but this is an iPhone, and you may have seen these before. There's a new one coming out rumored to come out next week, next Tuesday, at least be announced. And today, and yesterday, and the day before, in New York City, next to the Fifth Avenue Apple Store, that big glass cube you may have seen, it's kind of cool looking. There are already people lining up and sitting on the sidewalk in a line waiting for this new device. Well, whether they're right or wrong, I think they're kind of crazy, but Apple has something that they really want, hands down. So again, an illustration of how that point works. Point number 3, what feelings do my customers want to walk away with? So, honestly, when it comes down to it, what does the company ADT sell? Security systems. Sort of. Yes?
Feeling of security.
They sell the feeling of security to many of us, right? What feelings do I want my customers to walk away with? Well, ADT got it right. So that's how you can take 3 questions and ask, really, how do I know that I'm targeting the right audience? Because if you can't apply those things to your audience, you're probably at the wrong audience. And many times in my workings with clients, I'll say, well, who is your target audience? And they say, everyone. And I smile and laugh because, they think that's true. But when you break it down, there's certain people that really care about your product and want and need that. And want the feeling that cause, product, service, etc. gives them. That's your audience. And that's where you want to find a match for your story. So what does your audience want? They want you to listen, and they want to have you ask them questions. And they want you, after you've listened and asked questions and really understood them, they want you to share your story with them. And that will resonate with them.